I never thought I'd spend Christmas Eve 2024 plotting revenge instead of wrapping presents. My name is Margaret, I'm 48 years old, and I've been married to Robert for 12 years. It was my second marriage, his third. And that should have been my first warning sign. Robert and I met at a charity gala 6 years after my divorce. He was charming, successful, and seemingly over his past relationships. His second ex-wife, Vanessa, lived across the country with their teenage daughter, Emma. I'd only met her twice, both times at Emma's major life events. Our interactions were cordial, distant, professional. Exactly how I thought second wife and ex-wife relationships should be. But 3 weeks before Christmas, everything changed. We were sitting in our living room, the fire crackling, discussing our holiday plans. Our tradition was intimate, just us, my sister Janet and her husband, and Robert's daughter Emma, who was flying in from college. 7 people total. Manageable. Warm. Exactly how I liked it. Margaret, I need to talk to you about Christmas dinner, Robert said, his tone casual, like he was about to suggest we add mashed potatoes to the menu. Sure, what's up? I asked, scrolling through recipes on my tablet, looking for a new dessert to try. I invited Vanessa to join us. I looked up so fast I nearly gave myself whiplash. I'm sorry, what? Vanessa. She's going to be in town anyway, dropping off Emma. It seemed silly for her to spend Christmas alone in a hotel when we have plenty of room, he explained, as if this made perfect sense. My mind raced. His ex-wife. At our Christmas dinner. In our home. Sitting at our table. Robert, this is our family Christmas. Why would you think I'd be comfortable with your ex-wife there? He sighed, that condescending sigh that made my blood pressure spike. Margaret, be reasonable. Emma would love to have her mother there. Vanessa and I have been divorced for 8 years. We're friends. Adults. Surely you can handle one dinner with her. The way he said it, surely you can handle, like I was the problem. Like I was being petty and jealous instead of having a completely normal reaction to this absurd situation. You should have asked me first, I said, keeping my voice steady even though anger was building in my chest. I'm telling you now. It's already done. She's already planning on it. He stood up, clearly considering the conversation over. I'm sure you two will get along fine. You're both mature women. That night, lying in bed next to my husband who was already snoring peacefully, I stared at the ceiling and felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just about Vanessa coming to dinner. It was about the lack of respect. The assumption that my feelings didn't matter. The casual dismissal of my comfort in my own home. I started thinking about other times Robert had done this, made decisions without consulting me, then presented them as fait accompli. The investment opportunity he'd taken from our joint savings without discussion. The weekend trip he'd planned with his college buddies that coincided with my birthday. The new car he'd bought without letting me see it first because it was such a good deal, I couldn't wait. As I lay there in the dark, a plan began forming in my mind. If Robert wanted Vanessa at Christmas dinner, fine. She could come. But he had no idea what else would be revealed that night. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Then I called my sister Janet. I need your help with something, I told her. And it's going to make for an unforgettable Christmas. Over the next 3 weeks, I prepared. Not just the turkey and the sides and the desserts, but something else entirely. I gathered documents, made calls, arranged meetings. I smiled at Robert every morning over coffee. I discussed menu options and asked if Vanessa had any dietary restrictions. I played the perfect, accommodating wife. You're being so gracious about this, Robert said one evening, kissing my forehead. I knew you'd come around. Vanessa's really looking forward to it. She said she's excited to get to know you better. I'll bet she is, I thought, but I just smiled and stirred the soup I was making. Emma arrived 2 days before Christmas. She's a sweet girl, 19 years old, studying environmental science. I'd always liked her, and nothing about this situation was her fault. When she hugged me at the airport, she said, "Margaret, thank you so much for letting Mom come to dinner. It means so much to me to have both my parents there." My heart softened toward her, but hardened even more toward Robert. He was using their daughter's feelings to justify his disrespect toward me. Vanessa arrived on Christmas Eve. She was staying at the Hilton downtown, but came over that evening to help with preparations. Though what help she thought she'd be the night before a dinner in someone else's home, I have no idea. She was tall, blonde, impeccably dressed in casual expensive clothing that screamed, "I have money and taste." She air-kissed both my cheeks like we were old friends. "Margaret, your home is absolutely stunning. Robert has such good taste. Our home, that Robert and I chose together, that I decorated, that I'd made into a home over 12 years. But sure, it was all Robert's good taste." "Thank you, Vanessa. Can I get you some wine?" I asked, the perfect hostess. "That would be lovely. Red, if you have it." I poured her a generous glass of a Cabernet that cost more than I wanted to spend on someone I didn't want in my house. We sat in the living room, Emma between us on the couch, while Robert busied himself with the fire. "So, Vanessa, what brings you to town besides dropping off Emma?" I asked, genuinely curious why she'd traveled across the country just to deliver a 19-year-old who was perfectly capable of flying alone. She glanced at Robert, a look I couldn't quite read passing between them. "Oh, just wanted to see some old friends. It's been a while since I've been back to the city." Something about that exchange bothered me, but I pushed it aside. I had my own surprises planned for tomorrow. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. I woke early and began preparing the dinner. Turkey in the oven by 8 a.m. Potatoes peeled and ready to boil. Pies baked the day before cooling on the counter. Everything perfect. Janet and her husband Tom arrived at noon, as planned. I'd briefed Janet on everything, and she immediately understood her role. We worked together in the kitchen while Robert entertained Vanessa in the living room, their laughter floating down the hallway like mockery. "Are you sure about this?" Janet whispered as we chopped vegetables. "Completely," I replied. "I'm done being treated like my feelings don't matter." At 2 p.m., I called everyone to the table. It looked beautiful. White tablecloth, red candles, fresh greenery, the good china we only used for special occasions. Vanessa complimented everything. Emma looked genuinely happy to have both her parents at the same table. Robert presided over it all like the benevolent patriarch bringing his family together. I served the first course, butternut squash soup. Everyone oohed and awed appropriately. Conversation flowed easily enough, mostly Emma talking about her classes and her plans for next semester. Then, as I was clearing the soup bowls, Vanessa said something that made my blood run cold. "You know, Margaret, I have to say, Robert speaks so highly of you. It's clear he made the right choice this time." This time. The implication being that his choice of her had been wrong. Or perhaps that his first wife had been the wrong choice. As if women were choices men made, selections from a catalog, to be evaluated and ranked. But it was the way Robert smiled when she said it that bothered me most. A private, knowing smile. Like they shared something I wasn't part of. I brought out the turkey, carved and arranged beautifully on a platter. Robert stood to carve it officially, another patriarchal tradition I'd always found ridiculous but had tolerated. He raised his glass. "I want to make a toast," he said, and my stomach tightened. "To family. To the people who matter most. To old bonds and new. To Vanessa, for being mature enough to join us. And to Margaret, for being gracious enough to host her." I wanted to dump the cranberry sauce over his head. Instead, I smiled and raised my glass. We ate. The food was perfect. I'd made sure of that. If this was going to be a memorable Christmas dinner, the meal itself would be flawless. We talked about Emma's school, Tom's new job, Janet's volunteer work at the animal shelter. Safe topics. Pleasant topics. Dessert was served, pecan pie and apple tart with vanilla ice cream, coffee and tea. Everything proceeding according to tradition. Then, as we were finishing dessert, I stood up. "I'd like to make an announcement," I said, my voice steady. Robert looked at me, smiling indulgently. "What is it, dear?" I pulled an envelope from my pocket. Not just any envelope, a legal-sized one, thick with documents. I placed it on the table in front of Robert. "I'm filing for divorce," I said simply. The table went completely silent. Emma's fork clattered onto her plate. Janet, who knew this was coming, still looked shocked now that it was actually happening. Tom's eyes went wide. Vanessa's mouth fell open. But it was Robert's face I watched. The confusion, then disbelief, then anger flickering across his features. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice tight. "I'm divorcing you, Robert. Those are the papers. I filed them 3 days ago. You're being served after Christmas, but I thought you should know now, surrounded by family. Since you value family so much." "Margaret, this is insane." "What?" I held up my hand. "I'm not finished. You see, when you decided to invite your ex-wife to our Christmas dinner without consulting me, it was the final straw in a long pattern of you making unilateral decisions that affect both of us. But that's not why I'm divorcing you." I pulled out another paper from my pocket and laid it on the table. "I'm divorcing you because I hired a private investigator 6 weeks ago. I wanted to understand why you'd been so distant lately, why you were constantly on your phone, why you seemed distracted." Robert's face had gone from red to white. Vanessa, interestingly, had also gone pale. "It turns out," I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "that you and Vanessa have been having an affair for the past 8 months. The business trips to Portland weren't business at all. The old friends she came to visit? That was you. You've been planning to leave me and go back to her, but you wanted to wait until after the holidays because, and I quote from a text message I have copies of, "Margaret does such a good job with Christmas, it would be a shame to miss it." Emma gasped. Actually gasped, like someone in a movie. She stared at her mother, then her father, her face crumpling. "Dad, Mom, is this true?" Robert opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Vanessa reached for Emma's hand, but Emma jerked away. "Don't touch me," Emma said, her voice breaking. "Tell me she's lying. Tell me you didn't." "Sweetheart," Vanessa started, but Emma cut her off. "Don't sweetheart me. You told me you were moving on. You told me you'd found peace. And all this time you were—" She couldn't even finish the sentence. Janet stood up. "Margaret, we should go." "Actually," I said, "I think they should go. This is my house. Robert can pack a bag and leave tonight. He can stay with Vanessa at the Hilton, since that's apparently where he's been wanting to be anyway." "Margaret, please, let me explain." Robert finally found his voice. "Explain what? That you used me? That you lied to me for 8 months? That you brought your mistress into our home and expected me to serve her Christmas dinner?" My voice rose despite my intention to stay calm. "That you were so arrogant you thought I'd never find out?" I turned to Vanessa. "Did you know he maxed out our credit cards on gifts for you? Jewelry, trips, hotel rooms? I found all the receipts. Did he tell you that the investment he pulled from our savings went to rent you an apartment in Portland for your visits?" Vanessa's face confirmed she hadn't known that detail. "Good. Let them have something to fight about." "And Robert," I turned back to my husband, "did you tell Vanessa about the prenup you insisted on when we got married? The one that protects all your assets?" Funny thing about prenups, they usually have infidelity clauses. Ours does. A very specific, very expensive infidelity clause. My lawyer estimates you're going to lose about 60% of your assets. The house, the vacation property, the boat, half your retirement accounts. All mine. You can't do this, Robert said, but his voice was weak. He knew I could. He'd read the prenup as carefully as I had, probably thought it would protect him. Never imagined it would be used against him. I already did. Emma, I turned to the poor girl, who was crying silently. I am so sorry you had to find out this way. None of this is your fault. You are welcome in this house any time you want. You have a room here for as long as you need it, regardless of what happens between your father and me. I mean that. Emma looked at me, tears streaming down her face, and nodded. Now, I said, looking at Robert and Vanessa, I believe I asked you to leave. Tom will help you pack a bag, Robert. Just the essentials. We'll arrange a time for you to get the rest of your things after the holidays. Tom, bless him, stood up immediately. Come on, Robert. Let's go. Robert looked like he wanted to argue, to fight, to do something. But what could he do? The truth was out. The papers were filed. His daughter was looking at him with betrayal and disgust. He stood up slowly and followed Tom upstairs. Vanessa stood as well. Margaret, don't, I said simply. Just go. She grabbed her purse and coat and walked out, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Emma sat at the table, still crying. Janet moved to sit beside her, putting an arm around her shoulders. I sat down heavily, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation was fading, leaving me shaky and drained. I'm so sorry, Emma, I said again. I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't hurt me, Emma said through her tears. They did. They did this. She looked up at me, her young face trying to process something too adult, too ugly. How long have you known? I suspected for about 6 weeks. Had proof for 3. I spent the last few weeks getting all my legal ducks in a row, making sure that when I did this, I did it right. Why did you wait until today? Why Christmas dinner? I took a deep breath. Because your father decided to invite your mother to our Christmas dinner without asking me, without considering my feelings or my comfort. And I realized that was a pattern. He's been making decisions without me, about things that affect both of us, our entire marriage. The affair was just the most egregious example. And I thought, if he wants Vanessa at our family Christmas dinner so badly, then she can witness the end of our marriage firsthand. That's cold, Emma said, but there was a hint of admiration in her voice. Maybe, I admitted. But I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter. Like my feelings don't count. Like I'm just here to look good on your father's arm and cook his meals and host his parties. Tom and Robert came back downstairs, Robert carrying a duffel bag, his face a mask of fury and humiliation. We'll be in touch through lawyers, he said stiffly. I expect so, I replied. He looked at Emma. Sweetheart, I'm sorry you. Don't, Emma said, her voice hard. Just go, Dad. I can't look at you right now. That seemed to hurt him more than anything else I'd said. He nodded once and walked out. The house was suddenly very quiet. Just me, Janet, Tom, and Emma, sitting around a table covered with the ruins of Christmas dinner. Well, Tom said after a long moment, that was the most exciting Christmas dinner I've ever attended. Despite everything, I laughed. Once I started, I couldn't stop. Janet joined in, then Tom, and finally even Emma, all of us laughing at the absurdity of it all. When we finally calmed down, Emma looked at me seriously. Margaret, can I really stay here? Even though you and Dad are divorcing? Of course, I said firmly. You're always welcome. This isn't about you. It never was. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Thank you. I don't. I don't want to see either of them right now. You don't have to. You can stay here as long as you need to. We'll figure it out. Janet helped me clean up while Tom and Emma talked quietly in the living room. As we packed away leftovers and loaded the dishwasher, Janet said, "I'm proud of you, you know. That took guts." "Or stupidity," I replied, scraping plates into the trash. "No, guts. You stood up for yourself. You didn't let him walk all over you. You took control of your own life." I thought about that as I wrapped the leftover turkey. She was right. For the first time in years, maybe in my entire marriage, I had taken control. I had made a decision and acted on it. I had valued my own feelings and dignity over keeping the peace. It felt terrifying, but it also felt good. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Emma in the guest room, Janet and Tom having decided to stay overnight on the pull-out couch, I sat alone in the living room. The Christmas tree lights were still on, casting their warm glow over the empty room. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert. "This isn't over. You humiliated me. You'll pay for this." I deleted it without responding. Let him rage. Let him threaten. My lawyer had copies of everything. The affair, the financial impropriety, the texts planning to leave me. I had the law on my side, and more importantly, I had the truth. Another text came through, this one from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Vanessa. I need you to know that I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Robert said you had an understanding, that you had an open marriage." I almost threw my phone across the room. An open marriage? Was that what he'd told her? That I'd agreed to this? I typed back, "We did not have an understanding. We did not have an open marriage. He lied to you just like he lied to me. But you chose to believe him without ever verifying. You chose to help him betray his wife. Don't contact me again." I blocked the number. A third text, this one from my lawyer. "Merry Christmas. Hope it went as planned. Call me Monday and we'll discuss next steps." I smiled at that. Yes, Denise. It went exactly as planned. As I sat there in the glow of the Christmas tree, I realized something. This wasn't the Christmas I'd imagined. It wasn't peaceful or joyful or filled with family harmony. But it was honest. It was real. And it was the first step toward a life where I valued myself enough not to accept disrespect. My husband had thought inviting his ex-wife to our Christmas dinner was no big deal. He thought I'd just accept it, swallow my feelings, be the gracious hostess. He had no idea that his arrogance would be his undoing, that his assumption that I'd never find out about the affair would be wrong, that his mistress's presence at our table would be the catalyst for losing everything. He had no idea what was coming next. But I did. And I was ready for it. Christmas 2024 would go down in family history as the year everything changed. The year Margaret finally stood up for herself. The year a Christmas dinner became a declaration of independence. I raised my wine glass to myself in the empty room. "Merry Christmas, Margaret," I said out loud. "Here's to new beginnings." The tree lights twinkled approvingly, and outside, the first flakes of snow began to fall, covering the world in fresh white. A clean slate. A new start. Tomorrow I'd deal with the fallout. Tomorrow I'd face the consequences and the complications. Tomorrow I'd start building my new life. But tonight, I'd simply sit in my living room, in my house, that would legally be mine soon, and savor the satisfaction of having taken back my power. Robert had no idea what was coming next. But it turned out, neither did I. And that was the most exciting part of all.